Hey guys, welcome to the workshop. We're going to be doing the size A kits. So that's the carrots and the flower wheelbarrow. I'm so excited to get started. My name is Kenzie. I'm one of the co-owners of Details to Enjoy. We also have my mom off camera over here. And normally we have Tucker in the room with us as well, which is my dog, but he's actually upstairs with my husband, who is also home. So if you do hear anything, that is probably what it is. But I'm really excited to get started. You guys can chat with me in the comments and I will see those. So if you want to interact with me, if you want to say anything, share your ideas, what you're working on, if you have any questions, you can put all of those in there. Just so you know, there is a slight delay on that. So if I don't answer your question right away, I'm still just waiting for it to come through, but I will see it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the stream is going to work. So it's going to last about 60 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. I'm going to be creating the kit along with you. I have a top-down camera that we'll switch to here in a minute, where you're going to be able to see what I'm working on. And then if you guys want to rewatch this later on, you totally can with the same link. If you come to the same link that you're at right now, you'll be able to rewatch once it's all done. It'll be the recorded version and that you'll be able to see that. Okay. If you guys can see me, if you can hear me, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. This is always more fun when I get to interact with you guys and chat with you a little bit. So definitely send in those comments. Let me know that you are here and listening. I'm really excited. I see that Joy said she's so excited. So am I. Hopefully everybody is going to have some fun. But I'm going to go ahead and switch to the top-down camera so that you guys can see what I have here. Hello, Joy. Okay, so you guys should all have your little kits that came in the bags. We just switched to doing these muslin bags. I'm super excited about it. I think they're so cute. So I'm going to go ahead and unpack mine, and then we'll talk about what is in the little bundle. So I did have the paint in mine because I'm going to be using our paints. You could have opted to use your own paint if you wanted to. We've got our supply kit here and then our 2 kits. This is what everybody should have. We do have some people who were part of the combo subscription box, so you may have a little bit more, but this is what is in kind of the basic. And then we're also going to be using a paint roller, which I have right here. So this is what the handle looks like. You could opt to have just the refill or the handle with the refill. And I'm going to be using this, but it's not necessary. If you guys opted to just have the brush, then that will totally work as well. If you guys do have any problems hearing me, or if you need me to repeat anything, just let me know. I'm happy to do so. So let's go ahead and start off by going through the supplies that we have. So I'm going to just pull it out of the bag here. So we've got our 4 foam brushes. I'll set all those aside. We have our little paint sponge here. This is dehydrated, so we're going to rehydrate that later on. And then we've got our 4 sanding sponges. We've got a tack, and we've got 6 glue dots and a paint tray. So, and you also have the 4 paint colors if you opted to get the paint. So I've got the orange, the green, the white, and the black. But first, let me go ahead and show you guys the finished project so you know what we're kind of working towards. My mom will grab those. They're just behind me. So this is the finished flower wheelbarrow, and this is the finished carrots, and this is what we're going to be making. We're going to be following these exact colors and techniques on all of our pieces, but if you want to do something different, totally feel free to do that. If you are doing something different, we'd love to hear about it. Tell us about it in the comments. We want to hear all of your ideas, and we want this to be a fun place where we can all hang out and chat and share ideas and things like that. So these are the finished ones. I'm going to set these aside. Another thing about the workshop is that there is going to be some written instructions on the side. As you can see with the supplies written out here, there will also be some instructions as we move forward. So if you do miss me saying something, hopefully it will be covered there as well. But again, if you have any questions, just let me know. So also a reminder, if you do have the combo subscription box, the B workshop is going to be tomorrow. So if you want to come back and join me for that, you can do that. And then the other two things that you'll need are a little cup with some water, and it's always good to have a paper towel on hand. So I've just got one of those. But we'll get to the cup of water later. So I'm just going to set that aside. So now we're going to if everybody's ready, we're going to go ahead and get started with step 1. If you're not ready, just let me know in the comments. But we're going to go ahead and get switched over to step 1. And that is going to be painting some of our pieces white. So I'm going to pull all of my kits out of the bags. Your kits will also have an instruction card in them if you do want to kind of follow along with that. But ours don't, because this is just, we didn't put in our own personal kits. So I'm going to separate everything out by the color I'm going to paint it. So I've got my little carrot tops are going to be green. My carrots are going to be orange. The insert is going to be white. And I'll just pull this one out too, because I'm going to be working on both kits at the same time. Set aside the templates and the bags. And the felt flowers, we'll set those aside too to work on a little bit later. So this is going to be black, along with the wheel, the handle, the stand piece, I guess we're going to call it. I asked my husband last night what he would call that, and he's like, I don't know, the leg, the stand. I'm sure there's a word for it, but we're going to go with stand. That sounds right. And then we have our little wheelbarrow body. This is also going to be white. So I'm going to put it with the insert here. And then this other insert is going to be white as well, but it's going to be color washed. So this is going to be painted separately than the other pieces. So I'll set that aside too. Okay, let's get our paint out. And I'm going to be painting our insert with the roller and our wheelbarrow piece with the brush to kind of show you how both of those work. Again, if you don't have the roller, it's no big deal. You can definitely use a brush for the insert. The roller is just a little bit quicker, and it gives you just a tiny bit of a smoother finish. So I love using the rollers for the inserts, and we just recently added those to the website. So we're going to start with the roller. I'm going to get some of my white paint, and I'm going to pour that onto one side of my tray. You do want to be a little bit careful about leaving some room for your future colors, because we do have 3 other colors. I want to leave one side of my tray relatively clean. And then I'm just going to get my roller and load it up with the paint. And then we're going to get some paint on here. And I'm just kind of going over the whole piece. This is not something that I'm an expert in by any means. Whenever we actually paint walls or anything, we have my Aunt Tanya do it because she is really good at it. I can't say I have a lot of experience painting walls, but I do have some experience painting inserts. And I usually just rotate it around. It doesn't matter too much the direction, because this paint has been mixed with BB Frosh paint transformer powder. It does have some self-leveling properties, so the direction doesn't matter too much. And then that is a quick first coat done. If I see any raised bumps or anything, I'll just go really lightly with my roller over those to smooth anything out. I just want to get a nice quick thin coat on here to start with. Then I'm going to set this aside to dry, and we're going to get our first coat on our little wheelbarrow here. So I need a little bit more paint. And I'm going to be using the foam brush for this. This doesn't take too much paint. And one thing that we always do is we keep the edges of our piece black. It's just a personal choice that we always do. You can paint the sides, but I just like that it kind of really brings out the fact that they're 3D. So the way that I make sure I don't get any paint on the edges is I make sure there's very little paint on my brush. So I just soak the paint into the sponge, and then I just lightly go over my piece. And I use that chisel tip to my advantage. And I just kind of go straight along like this and rub the paint on there. With this first coat, it's almost like I'm just kind of like dyeing the MDF in a way. I don't have very much paint sitting on top of the surface at all. And if I do have any puddles, I'll go over with my brush to kind of smooth those out. And then if you do get any paint on the sides, you can just wipe that away with your finger if you get it fast enough. If it does dry a little bit, you might want to use a alcohol wipe or a Q-tip with some water on it and just wipe that off. So I'm going to set this aside to dry, and we're going to start working on our next color. So let me go to the next step here. If I'm moving too fast, just let me know in the comments. I can slow down, but we'll just kind of keep going unless I hear otherwise. So we've got step 2, which is painting the carrot tops with the green. So I'm going to get these out and then get my green paint. And I'm just going to put this all the way over here on the side. Oh, that's really liquidy. Put that over on the side and hope that it doesn't run into my white paint, so I can use my roller a little bit later on to do a second coat on here. And this is much more paint than you will need, so if you want to get less paint on your tray, you'll probably only need less than a dime size amount of this paint. So again, I'm just going to make sure I get most of the excess off and just lightly brush over it. And by having very little paint on your brush, you're going to make sure that it doesn't kind of seep over the sides. If you had a lot of paint here, it would pool up and get all over the sides. So just by using a light touch and very little paint, I'm able to pretty much avoid getting any paint on the sides of my piece here. So then I'm just going to set that aside and do my next piece. And I always just hold my pieces like this in my hand. I feel like I have a lot more control over what I'm doing versus trying to paint it on the table. And I just don't worry too much about whether I get paint on my fingernails. I've just kind of accepted that that is my permanent manicure every time I paint, is I'm just going to have some paint on my fingernails. But it washes off super easily. It's not like it's a water-based paint, so you can just wash it off with soap and water. Okay, so those 3 are painted. As you can see, I have a lot more paint than I needed, but we're going to go ahead and move on to the orange. Let's see if I can get less this time. And these paints are actually our paints that we have added to the website. We're going to be selling 1 ounce bottles of paint now. We started with just these 5 colors, but we have a whole collection of 20 colors coming very soon. We're hoping to get those up by this next week. We're really excited about it. We spent a lot of time kind of curating the colors and making sure that we were happy with everything. Before I get started painting this, I want to make sure that I have my tack on hand, because I'm going to be using the tack to clear out the lines. So I just want to make sure that I know where that's at, because it's best to do that while the paint is wet. So I'm just going to get a little bit of paint on my brush and start painting this. So yeah, we spent a lot of time curating the colors to all kind of coordinate together, but also have the full range of pretty much everything that we personally use for projects. So we have everything ranging from red to aqua to neutrals to colors, and we're really excited to get those released very soon. So if you have any paint pooled up in these little engraved lines once you get your first coat on, you're going to want to take your tack and clear those out. I don't have very much paint pulled up because I had a pretty thin coat on there. Sorry about that. Let me mute my, sorry, it was, so I had a pretty thin coat, so I didn't have a lot of paint pulled up, but if you do get any paint pulled up in there, just use your tack to go ahead and clear it out. So I'll keep this nearby for these other two and get a quick coat on those as well. You can also use that tack if you ever have an engraved insert, like we have our shiplap inserts, or any other engraved detail on a piece. That is what we use to kind of clean it out. That way you're not having to worry too much about applying the paint. You can just apply it however you want to and then clear it out afterwards. So this one's looking pretty good too. Let's see, this one I'll try to pull it up in there a little bit so I can show you guys. And again, don't worry if you guys are getting super full coverage on these right away. You can always do a second coat. We just really recommend working in these thin, light coats. It's going to give you a much smoother finish, and it really just makes the piece look a lot more like professional and smooth. So I'm just running my tack through here, and you want to make sure you wipe off the paint before you go on to the next line or try to clear it out again. So that first coat is done on all of those. And then the final color we have to do is the black. So I'm painting all 4 of these pieces black, but if you see in my sample here, these two definitely appear to be a different color than these 2 pieces. And that's because on these 2, we just did one super thin coat and then distressed it really heavily, versus these 2 have a much more full coverage look. So I'm going to keep that in mind when I'm painting my pieces. I'm going to get a little bit of black paint. How's everybody doing so far? Is everybody kind of about at the same point I am? Okay, let's see. So I'm just got my final foam brush here to do this color. Again, that same tip, tap off most of what is on your brush and then just apply that to your piece. Like I said, this is one of the pieces that's going to be really heavily distressed. So I'm just doing a thin coat on this one, even thinner than I would normally do. And then later we will sand this. So Joy says that she's almost done painting her carrots. Awesome. So we're just getting a coat on here. And the nice thing about these black pieces is you have to worry even less about getting the paint on the sides because it's just black on black. Okay. Now we're going to do this, and this one's going to be solid black, so I'm going to build the coverage up. Again, this first coat's going to be pretty thin, but then we'll come back and add a second coat to it. Oh, I forgot to go to my step 4, which is painting the black. Okay, so then there is my first coat on all of those. So now I'm going to go back and start to do some second coats, as long as we have no objections to that. So I'm going to switch to the next step here. So the next step is to do the second coats. So the number of coats that you're going to do totally depends on the paint you're using, the color you're using. We have found that white definitely takes a few more coats to cover fully versus a dark color. So this may typically take 3 coats, but I'm going to go ahead and just do 2 coats on this because I'm also going to pretty heavily distress this. So I don't have to worry as much about getting like a super opaque coverage because I am going to be adding that distressing later on. So I'll just do a quick second coat just to add a little bit more color, and then I'll do the same thing for all of my other pieces. And these, make sure that your piece is dry before you go into a second coat. If you're doing really thin coats with this paint especially, it should dry super quick, and you shouldn't have to wait too long in between coats. But just give it a feel. If it feels wet, obviously it's not dry. Another sign that it might not be quite dry is if it's a little bit cool to the touch. That may mean that there's a little bit of moisture still trapped in there. So you might want to wait a little bit longer, or if you're getting really impatient, you can use like a hair dryer or a heat gun to dry it even faster. So I'm just going to get a little bit more paint for these carrots. Is anybody doing different colors? Are you guys all just doing the same colors? I know that I feel like the Wheelbarrow has a lot of room for creativity where you could totally mix it up. You could also do different techniques than what we have shown on our website. We have the technique tutorials up now, so we show you how to do all of our favorite techniques. And we've got the video tutorials and the supplies and everything that you need for that. So you could totally do something different if you wanted to. And then again with these carrots, if you do find that you have any paint pooled up in the lines, you'll want to clear that out in between each coat and while the paint is wet. Okay, we'll do a second coat of the green. So I'm just doing a quick second coat on these. One note about the green paint, if you guys do have the our version, it's just called green. We did end up, when we added more colors, we ended up changing the name of this paint. So now moving forward, this paint is called Sage. So if you guys ever do want to get it again in the future and you can't find it, it's because the new name is Sage. Okay, so now I just need to do my second coat on my black and then on my insert. So this one I'm not going to second coat because that's going to be one of the distress pieces, and this one as well. So just these two. Let's see. So somebody says I'm doing a pale pink background for my Wheelbarrow piece. That's going to be so pretty. I love that idea. I love hearing how you guys change it up too. It's so fun. That's like one of my favorite things about the pocket frames is that you can like really make it match your own style, do it in totally different colors. At the end of January, we did a giveaway on our Instagram where you could enter by sending in pictures of your finished projects. And we got so many adorable entries for that. I love seeing how you guys do your kits and where you guys change it up or where you keep it the same. It's super fun to see. We're going to be doing that giveaway every month. So definitely keep an eye out for that at the end of the month. I'll have all of the details on how to enter it, and be sure to follow us on Instagram. We're at Details to Enjoy on there. Okay, so I've got my second coat on all of my little 3D pieces here. So I'm going to go ahead and move my little, we're going to flip these around so I can roll again. So I just want to get these all out of the way. We're going to have to be a little bit careful to avoid these colors of paint because we don't want to mix that onto our roller. So I'll squish these all aside. I'm going to need a little bit more paint on my tray. Oh, just dipped my finger in the green paint. This is why we suggest having a paper towel on hand. Okay, so I'm gonna get some more paint on my tray here for this second coat. And then I'm just gonna load this up again and get a second coat on here. And it's totally up to you how many coats you do. We do typically find that 2 to 3 works best for white. Some colors you can do just 1 or 2. Just kind of play it by ear and whatever you think looks best. And then also keep in mind things like if you are going to be distressing it, and take all of that into consideration. Just gonna make sure I get the corners here. And then again, just going over super smoothly to get rid of any lumps and bumps that are in the finish. Okay, so we're all good with our second coats. And I'm going to kind of get all this paint cleaned up because we're done with the painting step. So I'm just going to, and we don't reuse these brushes. If you want to wash them out, you can. We just find that it's not worth the trouble, so we just throw ours away. And then same with like these rollers. If you are doing 2 projects near the same time and you want to save the roller, you can stick this whole thing in a plastic bag and that will keep it fairly soft, but it'll only last for so long. So then I'm going to go ahead and just throw away my tray here. How's everybody doing? You guys kind of wrapping up on paint? My mom just pointed out that I totally missed doing color wash. So yes, I do still need my tray. Hopefully you guys have not thrown yours away yet. And luckily mine was just on top of my garbage. So, yes, we're going to color wash now. Which for this, you're going to need your other insert. Let me go ahead and switch to the next step. I was getting ahead of myself. I was so excited to make some flowers. But no, we're going to go ahead and color wash first. So for this, I am going to be using the white paint again. One of the best things about color wash is it gives you a whole nother look for the same color. So if you get some of these colors, you get 2 looks for the price of 1. So you can see the difference. I'll show again on the sample that this insert is color washed and this one is painted solid white. So it's 2 totally different looks, but with the same paint color. So for this, you're going to need a little bit of paint, and you're also going to need your paint sponge and your cup of water. So the first thing we need to do is rehydrate the sponge. So to do that, you're just going to dip it in the water and watch it expand like magic. I never get tired of doing that. And then you're going to squeeze out most of that water. And then you're going to use the sponge to get a few drops of water for the paint on your tray. So I'm just going to drip that in and swirl it around. There's no exact science for this. You just kind of have to play with what you like. If you mix it with more water, that will be more transparent. If you mix it with more paint, that will be more opaque. So now that I have this kind of mixed together, I can start to apply it onto my piece. So again, just with that same sponge that I got the water with and that I mixed the paint with, I'm going to start to apply this to my insert in a swirling motion. You can also do this in like a linear pattern to create, you'll kind of see the lines that you do if you do linear, or you can like switch directions and make a crosshatch design. It's really flexible, or if you just want kind of like a flat wash of color, I find that the swirling motion works best for that. We just want to make sure that we get the full insert covered. And the goal of the color wash is to see some of the texture of the MDF material that the insert is made out of through the paint. And it also, like I said, just gives you a different color than if it was a fully opaque paint. So then I'm just kind of smoothing out any areas that look where I can see too much puddling or something like that. And then once I'm happy with that, I'll set that aside. One thing to keep in mind with this technique is that it's going to appear darker when you first put the paint on because there's so much water. The MDF is going to soak up the water and it's going to look wet and dark. So if you are brand new to this technique, you can test it out on the back if you're not sure how it's going to turn out, or you can just go in and be confident because you can kind of fix it if you do want to fix it a little bit. If you find any areas that are too dark, you can go back in with a wet sponge. You can always do another coat. You can always sand it and play with it. One of the things I like about paint is that you can always do something to fix it. There's no wrong answer with paint. I'm going to quickly show you guys some other examples and give you a little sneak peek of some of our colors that are coming. So this is our new aqua color. We've never had an aqua that has been like a staple for us, so we're really excited about this and getting to use it in some kits. So this is the color washed aqua, and then this is the opaque aqua. So two totally different looks there. You guys have seen this color before. This is our rose color that we had for Valentine's in our last workshop. But here is the fully painted and then the color wash. And then this is another new color that I am loving. And this is the color wash and then the fully painted color. So you can really see how you get two totally different looks with the color wash, which is one of the things we love about it. So now I'm done with my paint tray, right, Mom?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm done with my paint tray, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this away now. And I'll set this all aside to dry fully, and I'm going to work on making my flowers. If you do find that you have a lot of paint on your hands, you can go wash them, or if it's dry enough, then you're good. That's kind of how I am. I'm like, it's dry, it's good. But that is something that if you have a lot of wet paint on your hands or something like that, you do want to make sure you get it off before you start working with the felt. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my little felt pieces, and we're going to assemble some flowers. And for this, I'm also going to be using my glue dots. You can also use hot glue for this step, but we are going to be doing the glue dots. Let me go ahead and switch to the next step before I get started with the instructions. And then let me know, have you guys ever played with the color wash technique? I'm interested to hear if you guys have done that technique, and you know, if you've liked it, and what you think about it. Okay, so to assemble the felt flowers, we're going to start with our roses here. It is possible that you guys may have the other style of half rose, which is a like a spiral that goes all the way in. They're assembled pretty much the same way, so no worries if you have that style instead. They are the same and they make the same flower. We also have our flower tutorials up on the website now, so if you do want to go check that out and see some up close shots of it, if you're having a little bit of a hard time with it, I definitely recommend checking out those videos. But I will explain how to put it together here. So if you do have this style that has just one layer of it, you're going to have one end that has a smaller petal and one end that has a thicker petal. This is going to be the bottom of your flower, so we're going to start rolling from the thinner side. And this is going to create the center of your flower. So it doesn't really matter which way you roll it, as far as, you know, back or forwards, just whatever's comfortable for you, and just make sure you're starting on the narrow end. So I'm going to just start to roll this up to create the center of my rose. And I'm just kind of pinching it and rolling it. I'm going to continue doing that all along the petals until I reach the end. And the nice thing about this is if you don't feel like you got it quite rolled how you want, you can always just unroll it and start again. It's no big deal. But then once you are ready to finish it off, we're going to go ahead and use one of our glue dots. I'll set that down there. Use one of our glue dots to finish this off. So to do that, I'm just going to press this onto the bottom of my flower and make sure it peels off of this little plastic here. Make sure I'm in the screen. And then once I've got that, I'm going to press this large flower or this large petal into the glue dot to hold it all in place. So there you go. And then you have your little flower. I'm going to go ahead and set that aside and make my next one. So again, you want to start from the thin end and work towards the fat end on these. If you're working with one of the spiral ones, you want to start on the outside of the spiral and work your way in towards the center of the spiral. So I'm just going to roll this one up. We also sell these roses on our website, so if you did want to do totally different colors, we do have more color options on the website if you wanted to get extras and do those. Here is the example of the spiral half rose. So you're going to want to start from the outside of the spiral and work towards the center, but it's the same kind of process where you're just rolling it. And then again, you'll just use your glue dot to secure it once you reach the end. So I'm just going to peel that off, stick that on. Oh, mine came a little bit unrolled, so I'm going to go ahead and re-roll it. Okay, once I'm happy with that roll, stick my glue dot on there. And you could also use the small glue dot for this half rose, especially if you wanted to. But we just have the large ones. Okay, and then kind of finish rolling that and press it into the bottom to finish off your little half rose. Okay, now I'm going to do the loop flower. So for this one, you're going to fold your piece in half lengthwise or hot dog style. And I just kind of pinch together my little loops to try to hold it in place a little bit. You could also put a few dabs of hot glue in there if you really wanted to, if you were struggling with keeping it together as you rolled, but you shouldn't need to. So then I'm just going to roll this one up from one side to the other, kind of keeping this bottom edge all about even. And I just roll from one side right to the other. And then right before I get to the end, I'm going to secure this with another glue dot. So will you get one torn off for me? It works better if you have your glue dot prepared before you start rolling, because you do kind of have to hold this one in place versus that one that really holds its shape as you're going. This one you kind of have to pinch together to keep it all together. So what you need to do for this one, it's a little bit different, is you need to glue these two layers together so that one doesn't flop away from the flower, and then you need to glue that whole section to the full roll. So to do this, I take one of these glue dots and I just peel it off of the plastic, and I place half of it inside of the fold to squish those two ends together and hold it together, and then I fold the other half onto the inside of the roll here, and then that is what's going to hold and finish off that roll. And I don't worry too much about keeping the glue dot super straight and clean. It doesn't matter too much because it's all going to be hidden away. So I just kind of smash it in there and get it stuck together. And then you can kind of spread your little flower petals out and fringe that out.
They can do, glue gun or glue dots. We just like the glue dots because they're so instant.
Yeah, we like we love the glue dots, but we've definitely used the glue guns before as well. You can do hot glue or glue dots. The one thing I like about the glue dots is there's none of those little strings from the glue gun, because every time I film with these flowers, if I'm using a glue gun, I will have the string attached to it somehow, and then I pull it away, and then the flower goes shooting across the screen. I feel like Spider-Man, and it's fun. But the glue dots are a great option. Okay, so now that we have our 3 flowers assembled, we'll wait to add the leaves when we kind of put the whole thing together. But we're going to move on to the next step, which is sanding. So now that we're going to sand this this color washed insert last because it's still not quite dry. But we can start to sand everything else. So I'm just going to pull those into my little work area here, and also my 4 sanding blocks. We love these things. We use them on every single project. We really believe in the power of sanding and what it can do for your project, because it is like the magic fix to anything. It makes your piece look so good, and it will hide any mistakes. We really like to sand our pieces. So we have 2 different types of sanding that we do. One is the smoothing sand, and that is the one that I definitely recommend on all pieces. No matter what look you're going for, a smoothing sand is great, because when you paint the MDF, it can kind of raise the grain a little bit and make it feel a little bit rough. So by sanding it, that's going to smooth down that raised grain and also just smooth out your finish. So to do that, I'm going to hold the sanding block flat against the piece and just really lightly move that across the piece. And you can feel the difference right away between where you have sanded and where you have not sanded. So I'm just going to do that really lightly. And then you want to make sure whenever you're switching between colors that you are switching sanding blocks, because you don't want the dust from this to get onto the other colors. So I'm just going to switch my block, keep that one over here, and then we are going to just lightly sand our next one. If you do find when you're sanding that you're pulling off too much of the finish, you may need to go back and add another coat. For these projects, I'm not too concerned about pulling off some of the paint because I am kind of going for like a rustic kind of look. But if you have enough coats of paint on your project, sanding is not going to take it away or make it look rustic. It's just going to smooth it out. Or if you find that it's really pulling off the paint, you might use a little bit of a lighter touch and not go so hard. The other thing that we want to do to these is we're going to do a distressing sand. So that's the second kind of sanding that we do. And that's where we use the sanding block at about a 45-degree angle along the edge. And we're just going to remove some of the paint along the edge. And what we like about the distressing is it really calls attention to the fact that these are 3D pieces, and it just makes them look, I don't really know what I like so much about it. It's just like,
it adds dimension. Yeah,
it just adds that little bit of extra dimension that I think really looks good, even if you aren't going for a super rustic kind of look. I have a few pocket frame projects throughout my house, which is more of a kind of a modern, slightly mid-century vibe house. And the distressing definitely doesn't look farmhousey in my house. It's all about the styling and the kits that you choose. So don't be afraid to add the distressing just because you don't have that kind of like rustic look of decor.
It's really good too on pieces that like touch each other, that
yeah.
puzzle together.
So I don't know how well you can hear my mom. She's just off to the side here, but she mentioned that it's also really good for pieces that puzzle together or touch each other, because then it really breaks those pieces apart and adds that dimension. Okay, so I'm going to switch to a new block and do my green pieces. And again, I'm just going to add that distressing to the edges. And on this piece, I'm going to make sure that I kind of like stick my block into the center here and distress those inner sides as well. And I don't know how well you can see on the camera, but this one is distressed and this one is not. So I just really like the look that it gives it. And these little sanding blocks are just gentle enough that you're not going to take off a massive amount of paint all at once. We do sell these on our website separately if you guys want to get them. Like I said, we use them constantly on every project. We're going through lots and lots of these. We love them. You can also use a fine grit sandpaper if you want. That would work as well. But I just like how convenient these are to hold. Although, we do have a game of who will drop the sanding sponge first, because as we're working, one of them's going to go flying, inevitably. It always happens. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. Okay, so I'm going to sand these pieces, and I don't want to sand this very much on this black one, because I do want to keep it fairly full color. So I'm just going to really lightly sand this one. And then same with my little handle piece, because I want this to stay pretty solid black. But then on these ones, I'm going to go a little bit heavier and really take off a lot of that paint. And since I had such a light coat to begin with, that MDF is going to show through a lot quicker. So you can kind of see I've sanded this side, but I have not sanded this side. And how much that paint came off just with a few quick strokes. And like I said, if you aren't happy with how much is coming off and you want to add some of that color back, you can always just go in with another coat. So again, no need to stress about it. You can always work with what you got. You can fix it and you can make it work. I don't know, you guys probably couldn't see at the beginning, but in the background of my video here, I have a sign that says hot glue the living daylights out of it. It's a Tim Gunn quote. So yeah, make it work. If you guys watch Project Runway. Okay, so now I'm going to sand my inserts. So I have my white block again. And I'm just going to, for these ones, I just do the smoothing sand because you're not really going to see the edges very much. So that part doesn't matter. But I do want to do the smoothing sand, because it really does change the texture of the piece. And again, you want to make sure that your piece is fully dry before you go in with the sanding block. I'm not sure if I said that yet, but you want to make sure that your piece is fully dry, because if you sand wet paint, it's just going to make a mess.
It just gums up.
Yeah, it just gums up your sanding. It makes it not work. So you do want to wait until it's dry. But all of my pieces are dry now, so I'm just going to do my quick sand.
Have you tried sanding before? Or
Yeah, let me know in the comments, have you guys tried sanding before? Have you sanded your previous kits? If you guys have, if this is your first set of kits, let me know. I definitely want to hear that. Or have you guys done lots of pocket frames? I'm always curious to know kind of where you guys are at. So now that I have sanded everything, I want to make sure I get all of the extra dust off of especially my inserts, because we're going to be putting adhesive onto here. I want to make sure that there's no dust here clogging up the adhesive and making it not stick very well. So I'm just using a clean, dry paper towel to wipe these off. With dark colors, if you are finding that the richness of the color isn't there anymore, You can use a very, very slightly damp paper towel, and that will kind of bring back that richness of color, but you don't want it to be too wet because then you're going to end up taking up a lot of the finish, and it will look more like color wash than it will look like a solid paint. Okay, so I've got these wiped off. I'll just kind of quickly wipe off these other pieces too. If we have a lot of little tiny pieces, we don't necessarily wipe off every single piece, but we do want to make sure that we at least wipe off the inserts. Okay. So now it is time to assemble. Who else is ready to assemble? Are you guys finished with painting? Do you have your flowers ready? Who's ready to get these all put together? I'm gonna just wipe off some of this extra dust that's on my table too. So, for assembly, this is the last step. We're going to need our templates. So these are in your kits, and they're just these little plastic cutout pieces, and this is what's going to help us place our pieces perfectly and take out all the stress from assembling the kits. If you're one of those people that is worried about getting things straight and centered and how you do that, this is going to take out all of your worries. If you have been a customer for a while, you may have seen these in previous kits. One thing that we did change for 2021 is that we made these full insert size. So you don't have to center your template on your insert anymore. You just place it on there and match up the edges. You can secure it with some washi tape on the edges if you want, but I'm just going to kind of hold mine in place. So Joy says, I've done a few kits. I like the sanded finish. That's great to hear. I'm so happy about that. I love the sanded finish as well. It really just elevates your pieces and makes them look super great. Okay, so now that I've got my template placed on here, I'm going to get my pieces that go in the template. So I'm starting with the carrots. And these all have a peel and stick adhesive backing on them. So you can really easily just peel off this protective layer here and place this in your template. So I'm just making sure that it's lined up on the edges here. And we're going to place this in the cutout. You kind of want to make sure that you're centered in the cutout because there is a little bit of wiggle room there. And then we'll move on to the next piece and do that one. Typically when I am putting together kits, I do recommend kind of looking at it from the top so you can kind of make sure that you're placing it in the template and not on top of the template. But I obviously don't want the back of my head in the way, so I will just kind of glance up at my monitor and see how it's looking. So now I'm going to do the same thing with my little leaf pieces. And we did make this easy just by making all three of the designs the exact same. So I just realized that I have my template upside down. So you'll have to watch out for that. Look at your pieces, make sure that you don't have them upside down. So yeah, my leaf piece was just going the opposite way. So no big deal, just peel it off. Then you can place it in there. I was worried for a second that my pieces were cut opposite, but no, just the template. It's no big deal. Okay, so now that all of these pieces are on here, I want to make sure that I give them a good press to make sure that they are stuck. Because if you do just lightly place it, it's not going to fully adhere. And that is a nice thing because if you lightly press it and you want to move it, you can definitely do that. But you definitely need to make sure that you press it on there nice and good before you pull off your template. And now you have your finished kit ready to go. Okay, so now that I've done that one, we're going to do the wheelbarrow. This time I'm going to make sure that my template's the right way, which is this way with the handle on the right side. Okay, so then I'm going to get my pieces placed in here. So you may notice on this one that this white piece goes all the way to the top, and there's not room to put this on top here. And that's because this is meant to layer on top of the wheelbarrow to create a little bit more dimension. Okay, so now I'm going to place this one. And with this wheelbarrow piece, you kind of want to make sure that you're placing it more towards the bottom of your template cutout versus the top, because there is going to be a little bit of space right here. So you don't have to press it all the way up. And then you want to kind of just get that going up the right angle and fitting into the rest of the template. Now I'm going to add my handle. And then I'll add my wheel here. And this does just kind of slot over this, and it will go into that area. Okay. And then I'm going to add my top piece here, just lining up the edges here on the top. Okay, so now before I add my flowers, I need to pull off my template. So I can put the flowers kind of directly onto the insert right here. So I'm going to go ahead and use I have 3 more glue dots, and we're going to use these in combination with the leaf trios as well. So what I want to start with is put a glue dot on the bottom of my fringe flower. And then once that's on there, I can add one of my felt leaf trios. And that leaves enough of the sticky part showing that I can use that same glue dot to attach it to my insert. If you're using small glue dots, or if you have hot glue instead, you may need to use 2 of them, or 2 dabs of hot glue, one to attach the leaf and then one to attach it to your insert. So then I'm just going to press that into place. And then before I add the glue dots to these, I want to kind of place them on here and make sure that I'm happy with how it looks. And where everything's at, kind of plan out where I want all of the pieces. Okay. And again, this is easier if you can kind of look at it from straight above, but this works too. I'll just kind of tilt it up. Okay. So I'm going to start off by placing this one here. And again, I'm just going to use this glue dot and stick it on to the back of my flower and put the trio onto there, and then stick it on here. And actually I want my trio going up a little bit at an angle. Okay, so there's those 2. Press them down into place, and then we'll just add this last one on the top. I'll stick my flower onto there, and then kind of nestle this in and angle it a little bit. Okay, and then there is those 3 flowers on there, and this insert is totally done. So now I can slide these into my frame and show you guys the finished project. How are you guys all doing? Are you guys about where I'm at? Do you have your kids getting finished up? Here is my pocket frame. This is a size A pocket frame, or 6x6. And then you can see that these just slide right into here. Your lid snaps back on. It's held on with magnets. And then you have your finished carrot insert that you can switch out for the flower wheelbarrow. And there's that one. Super fun, super easy. It's only been about an hour, so that didn't take very much time at all. And though there are both of the finished kits. So we're just gonna wrap up here, go back to showing my face as well. If I'm looking this way, it's because I'm looking at my monitor or down at the projects, but I hope you guys had fun. I hope you enjoyed creating with me. If you guys do have any questions as we wrap up, be sure to let me know. If you don't get your question in quite by the time we end, you can always message us or email us and let us know what your question was, and we'll get it answered there. We would love to see how your projects turned out. Feel free to share them with us on social media. We're at Details to Enjoy on Instagram, on Facebook, here on YouTube. You can find us. Be sure to follow along with us and share your projects like I said. And then we will be sending out an email again to the whole group of everybody that was signed up for the workshop that has the link to this and any other information that we want to share with you guys. Do keep in mind we have another workshop that is launching on, I think, Saturday. That's what we're aiming for. We have a fun project for next month. So if you guys want to do another workshop, we would love to have you again. Joy says, thanks, it was fun. I'm glad you had fun. I had a lot of fun hanging out with you guys as well. But yeah, so there are the projects. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed, and I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I will talk to you next time. Bye, guys.